Hello everyone, happy Black History Month, happy late Valentine's. I made a video for Valentine's Day, but I didn't put it on here because it has a copyright strike, so I gotta re-record it for here. But yeah, hope everyone's doing well, hope everyone's having a great February, a great Black History Month, looking at not just me, but other creators and Black History movies, all kinds of stuff. There's lots of stuff you can be looking at. One thing I would recommend would be looking at James Baldwin's documentary. Gosh, now I gotta remember the name of it. I've seen it before, but just look it up. You'll find it. But today, I'm here to talk about Shaft. So I watched the movie Shaft. It was released June 25th, 1971. It's an American crime action film / Blaxploitation film. When I looked it up, it actually had like this one and Foxy Brown have really big budgets, which I will say I'll save it for my pros, but you can definitely kind of tell like the difference in the budgets, you know what I mean? It was directed by Gordon Parks, who is a black man. I checked. And the cast is Richard Roundtree as John Shaft. Moses Gunn is Bumpy Jonas. Drew Bundini Brown as Willie. Which I'm gonna be honest, I don't really remember Willie, but Bumpy is kind of like the antagonist, sort of. But I'll explain it in a second. So Charles Cioffi as Lieutenant Vic Androzzi. He works with Shaft. So Shaft is a private detective, which when I tell you the synopsis, it's going to make more sense. And then Sherry Brewer as Marcy Jonas, who is Bumpy Jonas's daughter. So this is an adaptation of a novel with the same name. And it's the first entry in the Shaft series. They have 4 movies. Only watched the one. But the plot revolves around a private detective named John Shaft, who is hired by a Harlem mobster, who is Bumpy Jonas, to rescue his daughter, Marcy Jonas, from Italian mobsters who kidnapped her. Oh, I missed one. Christopher St. John as Ben Buford. So he's like a leader of a black militant group, and he like helps out to get Marcy Jonas. So now I'm wondering, is Willie, I don't think he's one of the the Italian mobsters, but basically Bumpy Jonas is like a mobster. He sells drugs, he has prostitutes, you know, all the things that a mobster has, you know what I mean? And basically, so the Italian mobsters come into Harlem and are trying to take over Bumpy's like territory, and they kidnap his daughter, because I think they tried to kidnap one of the Italian mobsters people, but it didn't work out. But they succeeded in taking his daughter. So that's why he finds Shaft and is like, yeah, I need you to get my daughter. And he pays him and stuff. But yeah, that's basically the story. I mean, the movie's like 40 years old, so I'm gonna spoil it. They do get her back. But I want to kind of go into detail about that in a second. But I'm going to start off with my pros. The cinematography. This movie, out of the 3 Blaxploitation movies I've seen, was the clearest and most appealing looking of all the others. So it was very clear. It looked nice. I mean, you know, it's New York City. Now, people have mixed views on New York City. Some people, like me, I'm not really good with direction, but I think the city's great. I think it's beautiful. I think it has a lot of fun stuff to do. Other people will see it as like a dirty rat trap. So yeah, there's 2 sides, and there could be some people in the middle who think it's okay. Yeah, no, everybody has their own opinions. Yeah, and it was cool to me to look at it take place all over New York City. Yeah, so I thought all the shots looked great. Like I said, visually appealing. I don't know why I said that twice. I was doing my notes at like 1 in the morning though, so that could be why. So yeah, it was really cool. Like, you know, going through the city, you see all the city shots, all the aerials and different things, and seeing him walking through the city. It was really cool. Okay, so the next pro is the premise slash story. Like, I liked the premise for the movie, it wasn't bad, but it also had execution issues. But I'm gonna go more into that in the cons. So let's get back. However, I think it was a unique premise to have like a black private detective being the hero and technically helping the bad guys. But I feel like if he didn't, then the city would have been in chaos because it would have been the black mobsters and the Italian mobsters going into like a race war. That's what they kind of described it as when I looked in the like on the Wikipedia, which with me, I do see how it could be a race war, but then I was also thinking it's like a mob war too. So it's like a bunch of mixed together stuff, you know? So, it balances out so that he had to help, lol, because otherwise he was going to have to, because he's the private detective, he's like a police officer basically, so he would have had to fix up the city anyway. So, and then the next pro is the settings. I think every setting in the movie was shot very uniquely and memorably. I liked the girlfriend's apartment and Shaft's apartment, um, which I thought the bar he caught the mobsters in. I put monsters instead of mobsters because, like I said, I was making this at 3 in the morning. I thought that was cool too, and like every place had a distinct look, and you weren't confused as to where you were. So I really like that. So if you're like you're downtown, you're downtown. Sorry about that. You're in Shaft's apartment. You're in Shaft's apartment. If you're in the bar, the no name bar, that's what they called it. You're in the no name bar. You know where you are. You know you're in Shaft's office. You know you're at the Bumpy's house or hideout. You're at the mobster's hideout. Like everything was pretty clear. I really liked that, and they all looked pretty unique. So that was cool. The characters. I'm gonna be honest. This is a bit of a con, but I didn't think Shaft, despite being the main character, was very interesting to me personally. But I did like Bubby Jonas and Ben Buford. They really stood out to me in this movie. They were both very distinct characters that had clear motives. They were very calculated in what they wanted and were standouts to me. So, Bubby Jonas wants to get his daughter back. And then also, he don't want anybody moving into territory. But the main thing is he needs his baby back. That was his main thing. And then Ben Buford, like, I think the mobsters were looking for Shaft, but they killed some of his people because he is like a little army. He's a black militant. So, he has a clear motive like, oh, I need money. I need, the insurance on my men. You get whatever you want. So that was really cool. So I think those two were like the standouts to me. I will say Lieutenant is, I feel like he's pretty unique. He's like, trying to give Shaft like time to like, find out what's going on before he like reports him or whatever. But he's pretty much on his side. So, but the higher ups are like, trying to be all up in Shaft stuff. You know what I mean? So here's my cons. The pacing. It was a very slow burn. No real action happened until like the last 20 minutes. And so I was talking about this earlier. The ending, I mean, it's kind of anticlimactic to me. And of course, I have another typo. It was like leading up to all this. I think I talk about it more in another point. So, in another con. So let me hold off on that thought. And it's like all these things leading up to it, like the final showdown. But for me, it wasn't really like a great payoff. So it's just like this happening, that happening, this happening, that happening, this happening, that happening, until you finally get to the showdown, and you're like, okay. I thought it would be more action packed like the first hour, but it was like patchy, and it took so long to get to anything really important. So I guess I kind of talk about it here. So I'm gonna combine them. I'm gonna talk about my last con right now, and then go back to my other cons. So the plot and events that happened. So the plot and events were like so disjointed to me. It was like, despite them being in sequential order, it was like no smooth transition. It was like, you're in this scene, now you're in this scene, now this is happening, now that is happening, now this is happening. It wasn't like a smooth, like, okay, we're going through the story smoothly. Like, it wasn't really that way to me. And then some of the scenes didn't really help the plot at all. Like, there were two sex scenes. Which one was with the white woman during Black History Month? So that didn't really help the story along. They were just there. Except for like he uses one of the sex scenes as a joke at the end. LOL. Because she's like, oh, you're a shitty lover, the white woman. Because he like kicks her out in the morning. And then he's like, close the door. And she's like, you do it, shitty. And then at the end of the movie, the lieutenant, the one that I mentioned earlier, what was his name? Vic, and Drosy. So Shaq is like, oh, you got to come get these people. And then he's like, why can't you do it? And then, or something like that. And then Shaft is like, you get him, shitty. And then he laughs, and that's the end of the movie. And I was like, okay. So, spoiler alert. But I mean, like I said, now everything flowed, and it was kind of like choppy. So that's one of the. So that's kind of a combination, even though I made them two different points. But another con was the voices. So they had like this kung fu movie effect where like the voices were delayed or like the sound wasn't right. LOL. So it was weird because they would be like talking normally in the scene, then the voiceover was like louder than they were just speaking. So it was off-putting. So the kung fu movies when they're talking but their lips don't match the words. It was like that. Or like Shaft is not even looking at the camera, and you could tell they did a voiceover because it's like louder than the actual words. Hey, Mom. Okay, I will. Okay. But yeah. So I gotta vacuum after this, y'all. But yeah, that was very off-putting. So my last con was it was very dark lighting. And like I get it was filmed at night, but they like really like it was so dark. Like it felt like watching a horror movie at times. You know how like horror movies are like everything's dark? That's how it felt like. LOL. Like they could have got some kind of spotlighting or like underlighting. I don't know what the term is, but something because it was just like hard to see. I had to turn my brightness up on my phone when I was watching the movie, and it was like it didn't really do anything. And yeah, sometimes you could barely see anything at all. So yeah, so here's my overall opinion on the movie. I think the cinematography in the movie was shot well, but the rest of it was kind of meh for me. Yeah. And I was hoping this one would be more exciting since it was like an action-packed Blaxploitation movie, but it was kind of a letdown, honestly. It didn't really build the momentum. It didn't really build the momentum, but the tension was like kind of there. However, it was patchy and it didn't flow well. So I would give it a 6 out of 10 because it looked great, but everything else was flat to me. And so I made I wrote a haiku. I've written them before. I feel like have I shared some on the channel? I will put in the description as always, like how it goes. So the first line is 5 syllables. The second line is 7 syllables. And the last line is 5 syllables again. So yeah, so here's it goes. It's called Payback. Shaft always gets the job done just in time for your vengeance to come true. Because of course I have a typo again. But yeah, that was it. That's what I thought about Shaft. Like I said, it was kind of blah to me. But if you've seen Shaft, let me know what you think of it. Let me know how you feel about it. And I will see you all next week. And also they have like a sequel called Shaft, so it might be confusing, but this one is 1971 if you wanted to look it up. Oh, also it's on HBO Max if you have HBO Max. So I mean you pay for the HBO Max, but it's like free. You don't have to pay extra to rent it. So yeah, I'll see you all next week, and happy Black History Month once again.